When people think of famous stars, they usually picture talent, glamour, and unforgettable success. Celebrities are seen as flawless icons, admired by millions around the world. But behind the spotlight, not every star lives a spotless life. Beneath the polished image lie dark secrets, secrets so disturbing they leave the public stunned when finally revealed. The stories you're about to hear uncover the truth about 17 stars who once appeared perfect. Icons who dominated stages and screens, legends in music, film, or sports, yet behind closed doors became the worst kind of lovers, shocking the world beyond belief. Miles Davis. Miles Davis, the jazz legend whose intimate nights often descended into a nightmare of control and brutality. A revolutionary force who reshaped the entire music world with his fearless creativity, Davis rose to prominence in the mid-20th century. The 1950s through the mid-1970s marked the peak of his career, delivering immortal masterpieces like Kind of Blue and Bitches Brew. Yet while his musical journey blazed with brilliance, his private life remained buried in darkness. With 3 failed marriages and countless affairs, Davis became infamous not only for his intense passions but also for his violent behavior. In his own autobiography, he openly confessed to addictions, not just to cocaine, but to sex itself. That addiction fueled some of the most devastating moments in his marriage to dancer Frances Taylor. On one horrific occasion, when Frances refused sex because she was exhausted, Davis tied her to the bed, whipped her with a belt, and forced himself on her despite her repeated pleas. The assault left more than physical scars. It inflicted deep psychological trauma that required years of treatment. Other women in Davis's life suffered similar terror. Cicely Tyson later revealed in her memoir a chilling night when Davis held a gun to her head and threatened, "If you don't do it, I'll shoot." That moment pushed her to flee in the dead of night, ending their 8-year marriage. Beyond that, Davis was notorious for treating women as disposable, changing partners as easily as shirts, often sleeping with 3 or 4 women a night, many of them young dancers and singers. His life became a relentless cycle of empty desire and cruelty. The women who crossed his path carried the consequences long after, unerasable wounds etched into both body and soul. James Brown. James Brown, the godfather of soul, turned the bedroom into a brutal power struggle where desire collided with violence. The man who shook the world with revolutionary funk rhythms built a towering, undeniable career. He wasn't just a musical pioneer, he was a cultural force who helped shape modern music itself. But James Brown's story doesn't end with his genius on stage. Behind the spotlight, his sexual relationships were often marked by an obsession with control and brutality. The most chilling episode came in 1988, when his third wife, Adriana Rodriguez, called the police after James held a shotgun to her head during sex. The trigger for his rage was disturbingly simple. She refused him because she was on her period. Enraged by rejection, James forced himself on her, his anger escalating rather than fading. He grabbed the gun from the nightstand, fired warning shots into the bedroom ceiling, and left Adriana frozen in terror. He was arrested, but Adriana later withdrew the complaint out of love, and the incident faded into silence. Yet the nightmare didn't end. In 1995, she dialed 911 again after another violent outburst. James struck her with a pipe, then forced sex until she was bleeding. This time, there was no forgiveness. Adriana filed for divorce, citing years of cruel abuse. The divorce was never finalized. She died suddenly in January 1996, and the charges against Brown were dropped. His fourth wife, Tommy Ray Heine, also escaped no trauma. After James's death, she revealed a life of cocaine-fueled nights and forced, punishing sex 4 or 5 times a night, even when she was sick and in pain. James Brown, for all his legendary achievements, revealed a darker side, cruel, insensitive, and relentlessly selfish. Adriana's death in 1996, following a fight over sex and marriage, stands as a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of a man who never knew when to stop. Russell Simmons. The hip-hop mogul who helped build an empire hid dark shadows of assault and manipulation behind fame and glamour. As one of the most powerful names in music and the co-founder of Def Jam, Simmons rose in the 1980s as a true pioneer, pushing hip-hop from the streets into global pop culture. He wasn't just the boss of Phat Farm, he was a cultural architect. But beneath that legendary success lay allegations that stunned fans and shattered his image. Known for decades as a charismatic playboy, Simmons carefully crafted the persona of a smooth, irresistible ladies' man. Yet for the women who encountered him privately, those relationships were anything but romantic. One of the most chilling accounts dates back to 1995, when young artist Drew Dixon visited his home to play demo music, never imagining the night would turn into a lifelong trauma. She later said Simmons spiked her drink, pinned her down, threatened her with scissors, and forced himself on her while uttering words that would haunt her forever. "You have to go all the way." Drew was not alone. Other women came forward with eerily similar stories. Alexia Norton-Jones described being dragged into a hotel bathroom in 1990, the door locked, assaulted as she cried and begged. Several women recalled being drugged with GHB or heavy alcohol, left barely conscious while Simmons took advantage. Despite more than 20 women publicly accusing him, Simmons has continued to deny wrongdoing, insisting everything was consensual while admitting a taste for rough sex, a defense many see as a calculated excuse. As lawsuits mounted, the consequences became unavoidable. His reputation collapsed, and the empires he spent a lifetime building, Def Jam and Phat Farm, crumbled. With nowhere left to hide, Russell Simmons fled the United States, relocating to Bali in an apparent attempt to escape the legal reckoning closing in around him. Dr. Dre, a legendary producer whose desire too often curdled into uncontrollable rage. One of hip-hop's most powerful architects, Dre founded Death Row Records and helped birth era-defining classics like The Chronic in 2001, cementing his status as a cultural giant. But behind the fame and luxury lay a personal life consumed by darkness. Beyond his musical genius, Dre became notorious for a volatile lifestyle and explosive relationships, most infamously with female rapper Dee Barnes in 1991. After assaulting her at the Wilshire Club in Los Angeles, Dre later called her to apologize. What followed was far worse. When Barnes went to his home, she walked into a nightmare. Dre twisted her arm as she resisted, continued even after she lost consciousness, and left her physically and emotionally shattered. Another former partner, Michelle, who dated Dre from 1987 to 1993, described similar abuse, recalling heavy cocaine use, repeated forced sex, and brutal violence. In one incident, Dre allegedly punched her in the face during sex, breaking her nose, then coldly told her, "Keep going, baby." These acts inflicted not only visible injuries, but deep, lasting psychological scars. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, Dre's overlapping relationships resulted in at least 3 children with 3 different women, while infidelity, often involving high-end escorts, became routine. That pattern of violence and excess ultimately destroyed his marriage to Nicole Young, his only legal wife. Their painful divorce ended with a $300,000 settlement, and years later, Dre publicly acknowledged his past in his 2015 album Compton, offering an apology for the damage he had caused. Marvin Gaye, the Prince of Soul. A man who turned love into music so beautiful it could heal hearts. Yet in real life, love became a dark whirlpool of jealousy, addiction, and control. With timeless albums like What's Going On and Sexual Healing, Marvin Gaye didn't just win over millions of fans. He carved his name permanently into music history. But behind the silky voice, the romantic lyrics, and the gentle smile was a side of Marvin few ever imagined. Long before marrying Anna Gordy in the 1960s, Marvin was already battling substance abuse. Fame, success, and family couldn't pull him away from stimulants. Instead, addiction followed him into marriage, slowly poisoning their relationship. Their home became a battlefield, constant arguments, fueled by drugs, jealousy, and uncontrollable rage, often ending in bedroom violence. In an interview with Ebony, Anna revealed a horrifying incident. While high, Marvin slammed her head against a wall after she refused sex. When she collapsed, injured and bleeding, he showed no concern, forcing himself on her right there on the floor. Their marriage didn't end solely because of infidelity, but because of repeated brutality that left scars far deeper than the skin. After the divorce, Marvin began a relationship with Janice Hunter, but for her, life quickly turned into another nightmare. In her autobiography, Janice described Marvin's extreme jealousy and obsession with control. In 1978, while pregnant with their first child, she refused sex, only for Marvin to choke her, accusing her of sleeping with another man. She later admitted she complied simply to survive. When sober, Marvin would break down in tears, begging forgiveness. Not long after, he recorded Sexual Healing, claiming it as an apology. But apologies meant little when the abuse continued, forcing Janice into violent sexual acts involving ropes, whips, even knives. For Marvin, sex was never about intimacy, it was about dominance and power. Meanwhile, Marvin openly pursued other women, models, groupies, and even fellow artists like Donna Summer. Surrounded by 2 or 3 women every night, he lived purely for his own pleasure, indifferent to the pain he caused. The physical and psychological trauma left Janice suffering from severe PTSD. In 1984, she finally escaped and filed for divorce. Tragically, that same year, after a heated family argument, Marvin Gaye's life ended abruptly, shot dead by his own father. A legendary voice silenced, leaving behind a legacy as haunting as it is unforgettable. Mike Tyson. Iron Mike brought his brutal power from the ring into his personal life. As one of the most feared punchers in boxing history, Tyson stunned the world with shocking victories and lightning-fast knockouts, even against elite opponents. Known for his legendary fights, Iron Mike was seen as an unstoppable, merciless force. But when that same violence followed him into the bedroom, the story took a dark turn. Tyson married Robin Givens in 1988. In a now infamous interview with Barbara Walters, Robin revealed that Tyson was often violent during sex. She claimed that when she once refused the way Tyson wanted it, he choked her until she nearly lost consciousness, though he later apologized. Just days later, the abuse happened again. Their marriage collapsed within a year when Robin could no longer endure the violence and filed for divorce. In 1991, Tyson was sentenced to 6 years in prison for raping Desiree Washington, an 18-year-old woman, at the Canterbury Hilton Hotel in Indianapolis. Desiree testified that Tyson summoned her to his room at 2 a.m. and forced himself on her despite her crying, screaming, and repeatedly saying no. The case shattered Tyson's career. He served 3 years in prison, leaving a permanent stain on the legacy of Iron Mike. Beyond this conviction, Tyson faced multiple other sexual assault allegations. One woman accused him of breaking into her bedroom in Atlantic City in 1989 and assaulting her while she slept. Another incident involved a model in Las Vegas in 1990, though neither case resulted in prison time due to insufficient evidence. In his autobiography, Tyson later admitted he had been addicted to sex since his teenage years, claiming to have slept with hundreds of women annually. However, those admissions were not considered proof in the other cases. Though Tyson now lives a quieter, less public life, the shadows of his past continue to follow him, contributing indirectly to his bankruptcy filing in 2003. Suge Knight. The infamous Death Row Records kingpin who turned his mansion into a territory of fear, control, and torment. Suge Knight built his music empire through raw power and ruthless intimidation, becoming the shadowy force behind explosive stars like Dr. Dre and Tupac Shakur. But beyond the success and street dominance was a personal life spiraling into chaos and brutality. His relationship with Death Row singer Michelle Liu became one of the most disturbing examples. In 1992, inside Suge's Los Angeles mansion, Michelle Liu endured one of the most horrifying nights of her life. After a heated argument, Suge reportedly forced her face down, pressed a gun to her head, and assaulted her while ignoring her screams. When she resisted in pain, he only tightened his grip, twisting her arm until it was dislocated. The violence didn't stop there. In another relationship, Suge allegedly terrorized Lydia Harris, who later sued him in 1996, claiming he used a gun to coerce her into a sexual encounter with one of his associates. When she refused, she said Suge beat her unconscious. The case was settled out of court, but no settlement could erase the trauma and humiliation she carried. By then, the public was stunned to learn that Suge Knight's private life wasn't just reckless, it was predatory, fueled by control and a disturbing desire to dominate, even involving friends like Dr. Dre and Tupac. Eventually, Suge's reign of violence caught up with him. Today, he is serving a life sentence for a 2015 hit-and-run killing. Though the crime was unrelated to sexual violence, Suge Knight's long, brutal history left the court with no reason for mercy. Chris Brown. Once hailed as a gifted R&B superstar, Chris Brown allowed anger and unchecked desire to turn his personal relationships into a trail of violence and tragedy. With undeniable musical talent, he built a powerful career and global fame, yet his success was repeatedly eclipsed by romantic scandals and brutal behavior that made his name a constant subject of controversy. In 2009, after a Grammy party, Chris and Rihanna left together in a Lamborghini. When Rihanna saw a text from another woman on his phone, his rage exploded. He didn't just punch her, he bit her, choked her, and threatened to kill her while driving. When the story broke, the public learned this was not an isolated incident. Rihanna later revealed in interviews that Chris had repeatedly forced rough sex on her, slapping or kicking her when she refused. In 2013, a woman identified as Jane Doe sued him, claiming that after being invited to his Virginia mansion, she was drugged with alcohol and Molly, then choked and raped despite begging him to stop. The case dragged on until 2022, when it was quietly settled for $20 million out of court. Even more disturbing, while that case was still looming, Chris was accused again in 2016, when another woman sued him for forcing her into a bathroom on Diddy's yacht in Miami, despite her being on her period. His behavior seemed not to improve, only to escalate. In 2017, his ex-girlfriend Karrueche Tran obtained a restraining order after he allegedly punched her in the stomach for refusing sex and sent messages threatening to kill her if she slept with another man. To many, Chris Brown is no longer seen as an admirable R&B icon, but as a repeat abuser who leaves fear in his wake. Even today, he continues to face multiple lawsuits related to sexual assault and coercion, with several cases still awaiting trial. Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes. Behind the image of a famous Hollywood playboy lurked far darker shadows of brutal boundary crossing. Wesley Snipes was a standout star of the late 80s and early 90s, celebrated not only for his iconic action roles but also for his notorious playboy reputation. Yet his legacy is stained by a long trail of romantic entanglements tied to disturbing scandals. In 2017, Halle Berry shared a chilling account of her past with Snipes. When she was a rising newcomer, she dated him and stayed at his Malibu home. What followed, she said, was horrifying. He had a violent habit of choking her during sex. When she screamed in pain and begged him to stop, he didn't. He tightened his grip, even striking her. After repeated incidents, Berry suffered severe injuries, including 80% damage to her eardrum. The abuse began around 1990, but she remained silent for years, fearing his immense fame would crush her voice. Then in 2004 to 2005, model Donna Wong filed a lawsuit accusing Snipes of violent sexual assault at the Beverly Hills Hotel, claiming he choked her and bit her lip until it bled. She was hospitalized that night for physical treatment and psychological trauma. The case was later settled out of court for $3 million. To Snipes, choking during sex seemed routine, not abuse. High-end escorts later revealed he often paid extra for extreme encounters involving choking, slapping, and biting until blood was drawn. His preferences, it seems, were never secret. What he failed to accept was the one rule that matters most. Consent must be mutual, explicit, and never ignored. Flavor Flav. A Public Enemy legend and an inescapable force of chaos. On stage, Flavor Flav stood as a hip-hop icon, a standout member of one of rap's most revolutionary groups. Off-stage, however, his life unraveled into a trail of disorder that stood in stark contrast to his larger-than-life persona. With 8 children by 7 different women, Flav's personal life was riddled with turmoil and instability. In 2012, that chaos turned violent. In Las Vegas, Flav was arrested after attacking his longtime girlfriend, Liz Trujillo. The trigger was disturbingly simple. Liz refused sex because she was exhausted. That refusal didn't lead to understanding, it led to rage. Flav allegedly held a knife to her throat and threatened, "If you don't give it to me, I'll kill you." Liz managed to knock the knife away, but the situation quickly escalated into a physical altercation. What began as a seemingly petty argument ended in punches, and ultimately, a conviction for domestic violence. Flav was sentenced to 1 year of probation. But this incident was only one chapter in a longer pattern of abuse. In 2015, another woman, Kate Gamble, reported Flavor Flav to police for sexual assault. According to her statement, Flav repeatedly tied her to the bed, used leather whips, and forced her to have sex throughout the night. She claimed that if she drifted off from exhaustion, he would slap her awake and continue. The lawsuit later moved toward an out-of-court settlement, leaving neither side with true closure. On a couples therapy show, Flav openly admitted to being addicted to sex, confessing that he couldn't stop, even when a woman was crying. That admission only reinforced what these stories reveal. Behind the hype and humor was a deeply disturbing pattern of control, manipulation, and violence. For Flavor Flav, it wasn't just about desire, it was about power. Mystikal. Once one of the most explosive and unforgettable rappers of the early 2000s, Mystikal had everything: raw energy, chart-topping hits, and a larger-than-life persona. But behind the music, desire slowly twisted into cruelty, and fame into destruction. His name wasn't just tied to hit records anymore, but to shocking sex scandals that never seemed to fade. As his career was climbing fast, everything came crashing down. In 2002, Mystikal was arrested after he and 2 bodyguards forced a 25-year-old woman and her boyfriend to perform sexual acts in front of him over a $20,000 debt. The horrifying ordeal was filmed, followed by even more brutal abuse. He was later convicted of sexual battery and extortion, receiving a 6-year prison sentence. Yet prison didn't change him. In 2017, just as he attempted a musical comeback, Mystikal was accused again. After a party at a Shreveport casino, he allegedly dragged a woman into a hotel room, ripped off her clothes, and assaulted her while she begged him to stop, even claiming she had HIV. Once again, Mystikal was convicted and sent back to prison, this time for another 6 years. A career that once seemed unstoppable was completely destroyed, not by the industry, not by critics, but by repeated acts of sexual violence. In the end, Mystikal didn't fall off, he ended it himself. Treach. A core member of Naughty by Nature, Treach turned what should have been a loving marriage into a prison defined by control, fear, and violence. At the height of his fame, he entered a highly publicized relationship with Peppa of Salt and Peppa. While his career continued to rise, Treach's personal life spiraled into scandal and darkness. In her autobiography, Peppa exposed the terrifying reality behind closed doors. Their marriage didn't fall apart from arguments alone, but from repeated acts of violence, including abuse during intimacy. She revealed that Treach would physically restrain her, silence her cries, and push her to the point of losing consciousness. When she pleaded, "It hurts. Stop," the abuse only intensified. He struck her, consumed by rage, coldly reminding her, "You're my wife, endure it." Even during her 7th month of pregnancy with their daughter, Egypt, the abuse continued, sending Peppa to the hospital with severe bleeding. The nightmare didn't end with divorce. Treach allegedly continued to threaten her life, forcing Peppa to seek a permanent restraining order. "If you sleep with another man, I'll kill you both," he warned. The trauma of that violent marriage never truly faded, leaving Peppa shaken each time she revisits those memories. See murder. Once a no-limit rapper, he allegedly turned his mansion into a place of control and torment. As a prominent member of Masterpiece Camp, C. Murder built a reputation in music, but behind the stage lights lurked accusations of disturbing crimes. In 2001, at the Metairie Mansion near New Orleans, he invited 2 young women, a 19-year-old dancer and a 22-year-old model, over, unaware that the night would become a nightmare. Prosecutors said they were drugged, restrained, and assaulted for hours, with threats that recorded footage would be released if they went to police. One victim required hospitalization for serious injuries. Though the women filed suit, the case was later dropped amid fear and a lack of willing witnesses, as many were too afraid to testify. Even so, court records remained. painting a grim portrait of C. Murder's character beyond the music. Those allegations were later cited as aggravating factors in his murder conviction, contributing to a life sentence that ultimately defined his legacy far more than any song. Nelly, a hip-hop superstar who once turned sold-out arenas into celebrations, and later turned a tour bus into a place of fear. Nelly was a shining name in hip-hop, dominating the charts and cementing himself as a cultural icon. But behind the glamour and fame were scandals that would forever tie his name to infamy. After a concert at the University of Washington in October 2017, long after the stage lights had gone dark, Nelly invited a 21-year-old student onto his tour bus. Excited to meet her idol, the young woman stepped inside without suspicion. She had no idea what was about to happen. Once inside, Nelly allegedly locked the door and forced her into unwanted acts. Despite her repeated refusals and attempts to resist, he ignored her cries. Moments after escaping the bus, the woman called 911. Police later collected Nelly's semen from the sofa inside the tour bus. He was arrested, but the criminal case was dropped midway when the victim declined to testify, fearing the damage it could cause to her academic future. Only a year after graduating did she bring a civil lawsuit to court. In the end, she received $2.4 million from Nelly in an out-of-court settlement. But this wasn't the end of the story. In 2018, police documented 2 more similar accusations from women in the UK and Essex. Once again, the cases never reached trial. Each was quietly settled out of court. Rick James, the funk king who let cocaine turn long, passionate nights into living nightmares. A funk legend celebrated for massive hits and a lethal charm with women, Rick James had the looks, the fame, and the world at his feet, yet he chose to misuse it all. On July 30, 1991, at the St. James Club Hotel in West Hollywood, Rick James and his girlfriend, Tanya Hijazi, targeted Mary Sager, a 24-year-old woman, drugging her with cocaine and crack. They brought her back to their home, tied her to a bed with ropes, and turned her into prey in a twisted, sadistic game. What followed was pure hell. Rick burned Mary with lit cigarettes as the couple took turns sexually assaulting her for 6 brutal hours. The damage was horrific, second-degree burns that required painful skin grafts. That same year, a similar nightmare unfolded with another victim, Frances Alley, who was held and assaulted for nearly 20 hours. Rick James was eventually arrested and sentenced to 5 years and 2 months in prison, but served only 2 years before being released, leaving behind a legacy forever stained by violence and abuse. Cuba Gooding Jr., the Oscar-winning star once celebrated for unforgettable roles, saw his legacy overshadowed by a wave of sex crime scandals. In 2013, his career was pulled into its darkest storm after a series of lawsuits accused him of sexual misconduct, transforming his name from a symbol of talent into a magnet for controversy. One of the most disturbing allegations stemmed from the night of August 8, 2013, at the Mercer Hotel in Soho, New York. According to court filings, Cuba invited a 30-year-old woman to his room to listen to music, what she believed would be a calm and harmless evening. Instead, the situation allegedly turned violent after the door was locked, with the woman claiming she was cornered and subjected to forced sexual acts despite repeatedly saying no and trying to resist. She reported the incident the following morning, and forensic testing supported her account. When the case went to court, Cuba avoided prison by pleading to a lesser charge of forcible touching, receiving a $1,000 fine and 6 months of probation. Rather than closing the chapter, the plea ignited even greater public backlash. Soon after, dozens of other women stepped forward, accusing him of groping and coercive behavior in New York bars and clubs. What followed was a slow but devastating collapse, as scandal spread and permanently stained the reputation of a once-admired Hollywood star. Ike Turner, the R&B legend who transformed a 16-year marriage to Tina Turner into a living nightmare of control, violence, and fear. On stage, Ike Turner was celebrated as a musical pioneer, crafting chart-topping hits alongside his wife and presenting the image of a powerful, glamorous duo. But behind the spotlight, a far darker reality festered for more than 2 decades. Any mention of Ike Turner is inseparable from the brutal years Tina endured in silence. In her autobiography I, Tina, and the film What's Love Got to Do with It, she exposed the torment she survived. Ike regularly beat her with belts, wooden sticks, and even high-heeled shoes, then forced himself on her while she was still bleeding and broken. In one horrifying incident in Dallas in 1974, Ike shattered Tina's nose, dragged her into a limousine, and raped her, while the driver sat behind the wheel. After years of humiliation and terror, Tina finally escaped in 1976 with just 36 cents in her pocket, spending 2 more painful years fighting for her freedom through divorce. Ike, once revered as a stage icon, spiraled into addiction and died from a cocaine overdose in 2007, leaving behind a legacy forever stained by the abuse Tina survived after breaking free from what she later called a prison marriage. No matter how bright the spotlight shines, it can never fully hide the darkness behind it. What's your take on this story? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next videos, where we continue uncovering the untold truths behind celebrity lives.